All right, we're gonna break down shoulder raises. So one of the best ways to train the shoulders, in addition to just overhead pressing, is to utilize various forms of raises, usually with dumbbells, maybe with bands, maybe with cables, but just even conventional stuff. You'll usually see 3 different positions to do dumbbell raises in. So there's typically a front raise where the arm is extended out to the front, a lateral raise where the arm is driven out to the side, and then some variety of a bent over or maybe a chest supported bent over lateral raise going this direction. So there are different components to the shoulder, and depending on what direction you're letting the arm move, you're gonna be hitting different parts of that shoulder. So when we go to the front, okay, conventionally we split the shoulder up into 3 components. There's the front deltoid, the lateral or medial head of the deltoid, and the posterior head of the deltoid back here. Technically, what we've learned is that it's not as simple as 3 sections, but for simplicity's sake, there really is kind of those general 3 directions that we're gonna go, just to drive more emphasis on those parts of the shoulder. So when the arm goes forward, we're gonna be using more of the front part of the delt. So what you can see when you're standing and looking in a mirror in this position. So when I'm doing this, one of the things that we wanna make sure we're doing is that we're moving as much as we can from the shoulder joint itself. So I don't wanna see a lot of shrugging or elevation of the shoulder blade, and I don't wanna see a lot of movement at my elbow. So I wanna basically glue all this in one spot, and the only thing I wanna see should be the shoulder joint is functioning like a hinge. So if I have dumbbells in my hand, as I reach, I'm not reaching up to the ceiling, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid letting my traps start to initiate some of that movement. I wanna be driving the weight forward toward that wall. And I wanna go as far toward that wall as I can possibly go. I'm actually letting my shoulder blade open up, and the more I drive with it this way, the more I can feel the contraction happening in the front of this delt, and I'm not getting any excess recruitment of my traps right here. Okay, so if your goal is to tackle a front raise, both dumbbells in hand, just driving straight out, just going as far this way until you can no longer reach forward. If I were to start to go higher and higher and higher, the weight starts to come back toward me, that starts to move me too much through my traps. So I'm usually not gonna go that far. I may kind of finish it like roughly eyeball level on a front raise. Now with a lateral raise, we're gonna set this up a little bit different. We want to keep the shoulder in what's called a neutral scapula position, which basically just means I don't need to exaggerate pulling my shoulders back. I don't need to exaggerate bringing my chest up. What happens when we bring the shoulders back is we kind of get the upper arm stuck in how it can move through the shoulder joint. As I pull the shoulders back, when I go out this way, I just don't have a whole lot of freedom of movement. I can feel a little bit of like a pinching sensation right in the top of the delt, right by the AC joint. But if you let the shoulders just go, not into an exaggerated position, but just in a natural standing position, this is what we call a neutral scapula. So now when I take those dumbbells in my hand, or cables or whatever we're using, I wanna drive in the same direction as the way my arm is kind of oriented. So if you look at how my palms are not smack on my sides. My palms are hanging just a little bit in front of my thighs. If I were to take both arms up from this position, if the room was a clock, most people would think we wanna go to like a 9 o'clock and a 3 o'clock. For me, this puts me in almost like a 10 and a 2. Now everyone's gonna look a little bit different, so it's very possible that you might be fine going straight out almost into like a 9 o'clock and a 3 o'clock. It just depends on how your shoulder blades sit when you're just in a very neutral, relaxed position. But similar idea, we're gonna take the weights and we're just gonna drive out and reach as far as we can this way. So our priority is not to go up to the sky. Our priority is to go wide. Think like the dumbbells we're holding are on fire. The goal is to keep them as far away from me as possible. All right, so, and then I bring them right back down. Now, one thing that's really helpful with the lateral deltoid is when you raise the arm up, try to keep the part of the muscle that you want to feel working turned up toward the ceiling. So if I want to feel this part of my shoulder, make sure that you're not letting the thumb start to turn up or the elbows start to drop, because all that does, that takes that big meaty part of the shoulder that I wanted to feel, and it kind of pulls it out of position, and it's going to end up dumping stress right here on the front of the shoulder. So I just want to start here. It's going to go up and out as far as I can. Again, look at the side of my shoulder. I want the part I want to feel pointed right up to the ceiling. So that covers the front, and the lateral heads the delt. The very last one that we'll look at is the rear lateral raise, which is looking at the posterior head or the rear head of the delt. So this is going to be very similar to the lateral raise, but we need to get gravity in a position where it can work for us. So if I just pull my arms apart from a standing position, if I'm using free weights, that's not going to give me anything to work with. If I'm using cables or bands, that will be fine. But if we're doing this with free weights, we need to get our body positioned so that we're in more of a bent over position. You can do this either just bent over standing, or you can do this supported on an incline bench. I like the incline bench version because it tends to keep people a little bit more strict. So it tends to keep the quality of movement a little bit higher. So I just set a bench up at roughly 30 degrees. My arms just drop down. My shoulder blades are very open, which we've looked at shoulder blade position being a really important part of getting the shoulder to work right for us. And all I want to do is, again, I'm just going to take the weights and reach them as wide this way as I can. So my shoulder blades themselves are staying fairly open. I want most of that movement just to be a simple hinge off this shoulder joint here. It is not necessary for the dumbbells themselves to get level with your shoulder. Okay, because for a lot of people, what that's going to do is to get this last little bit, I might have to start retracting my shoulder blades quite a bit, which what that's going to do is just going to dump more stress in the upper back. And if we're not trying to train our upper back, then we're not trying to put that stress there. So I just want to go as far as I can. For a lot of people, that means the elbow is going to be just a little bit underneath the shoulder. But again, it's going to vary depending on how long your arms are, how much mobility you have in the shoulder joint. But I just want to express this by pushing out this way as wide as we can. And again, keeping the shoulder blades just nice and open. So again, we can see the back of the shoulder is what I want. It's very much pointed right up toward the sky. So I know my arm's in a pretty good position. So if you've been having issues trying to figure out how to use the different types of shoulder raises, hopefully that helps. Give this a shot. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.